All right. Hey there, ho there. I'm back again. Today, we are doing a little deep dive into how I edit my photos. This has actually been something that somebody asked me to do. So I'm super excited because I love editing photos. So I thought, what perfect opportunity. Before I get started, very, very excitingly, at the time of filming, I am only about 40 odd subs away from 1,000. So I would really like to hit 1,000 at some point soon, because when I do, I am gonna do a Ask Me Anything, an Ask Me Anything. It's not like I'm a professional proofreader and editor, like Jesus Christ, Liv. And Ask Me Anything. So do it, ask me anything. Shortly after this video goes live, I will put a community post up where you can drop all your questions and comments. I've already had quite a few questions and I'm super excited because I love that people are actually asking me questions. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into how I edit photos. You probably already know, if you've watched any of my photography videos before, that I shoot on a very old camera. He's about 17 years old now. But that's fine for me because I actually quite like the kind of like slightly grainy film look. And that's something I try to bring out in my edits a lot. So it works for me. For today's example, I have chosen 3 photos. One of them is a portrait of my beautiful friend Caitlin that I shot at Glasgow Botanic Gardens a couple of years ago now because, you know, there was a pandemic. Don't know if you heard. I haven't looked at these photos of Caitlin for quite some time. And this is an undiscovered one. I mean, frankly, it's beautiful. I don't think I can take the credit for that, but this girl is like my muse. Like, she is amazing to photograph. And then the other one I've got could potentially be awful, but could potentially be really, really great. I'm not sure which way it's gonna go. I shot this on my birthday vlog up here, if you haven't seen it already. We are going to start with this beautiful portrait of Miss Caitlin. I do have a couple of presets that allow me mostly to mute and darken backgrounds. You can see here that this one doesn't do anything apart from really mute down the colors and make it a little bit more blue and cool toned. And then I've got a very warm, very film-esque, almost like a sepia tone, but it's not quite. We move on to the presets that I have downloaded from other creators. Now, a lot of photographers have an issue with presets. I can understand that if you are being paid by a client to do a job and to edit that job. Using someone else's presets, it maybe feels a little bit cheaty. That being said, I love presets. It makes everything so much quicker. It makes everything so much faster. These creators have a much deeper technical knowledge of Lightroom and photography than I probably ever will do. So I really I don't mind. Like, I love presets. Presets are great. I use 2 packs, the Chris Howe by Lightroom indoor portrait presets, which, to be honest, a little bit hit and miss, but for the right photo, I actually love every single one of them. There's definitely a place for all of them. And then the other one that I use, the Chris Howe presets, by the way, were free. I don't know if they still are. I'll try and find out. And if they are, then I will drop a link in the description for anyone that's interested. My absolute favorite presets are the Peter McKinnon Fall Pack 2018. This guy. I fucking love Peter McKinnon, and I love Chris Howe, and I love the photography they both shoot. Peter McKinnon's presets, they're just like, there are no words. They are sensational. If you just enjoy, if you're like me and you're just a hobbyist photographer, editing photos for the joy of editing photos, Peter McKinnon's presets, stunning. Absolutely stunning. Oh my God. So, those are the presets I use, and I love them all, and I use most of them the majority of the time as a starting off point for all of my photos. We are going to get in to editing this portrait of Caitlin. The first thing I always do is check my crop, because there ain't nothing worse if you've got straight lines but they're on the piss. Nothing worse. I would maybe move that all of that far, frankly. And that would be it. I'm not going to crop this one because I'm not going to be posting it on Instagram, but usually for Instagram, obviously everyone knows at this point you do a 4x5 crop. The next thing I usually do is go down to remove chromatic aberration, enable profile corrections, select your profile. In this case, it's Canon. It knows that I shot this on an 18-55, which to be honest at the time is the only lens that I owned. And then that takes away all the weird kind of distortion and vignetting that you get through a lens. By the way, right, I've been doing this for 15 years, but I am in no way a professional, and I in no way fully understand what I am doing. So I'm just showing you what I do. This is not a tutorial. This is just me showing you how I piss about with photos once I've shot them. I always pick a preset first, so that I've got a starting off point. I think on this occasion, I'm going Warm Moroccan Dreams. Just click, apply your preset. The next thing I would do in this situation, I want to lift and bring a little bit more light onto her. She is the main subject, so I want to lift Caitlin's face and make it brighter. For a face, obviously, faces tend to be round. They are three-dimensional shapes. So I would probably do a radial mask. Just drop that on here, make it a little bit smaller. Now, I am purposefully avoiding this shoulder because it is at risk of becoming rather blown out. One doesn't want that. Switch the overlay off, thank you very much. Jeez, oh. So we've got our radial mask down. The next thing I would probably do here is mess with the exposure a little bit. Maybe just a couple of points, like a tiny, tiny little bit. Sometimes you can whack it right the way up. Could I potentially get away with that? Yes, I think about there. Works. Now, while I'm in the radial mask, specifically working on the lighting and the colors of Caitlin's face and skin tone, I am going to make sure that I'm happy with the colors. So I'm gonna mess with the white balance a tiny little bit, just a tiny little bit, because I don't want to throw it off from the whole photo. I want it to match, which it already does. But as you can see here from lifting it, the colors are a little bit more clear now, and her skin is just looking a little bit yellow, and we don't really want that. So I'm probably just gonna cool that down just a smidge. And then what I would probably do is lift the shadows just a tiny wee bit. Tiniest wee bit. That's too much. That's too much. There we go. Lift the shadows a tiny wee bit. Other thing I am probably going to do here is just crush the blacks just a tiny smidge. Just not even that. Just like 3. Just to help bring a little bit more light to it. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm all right with that. For now, she says. So, new mask, and I am going for probably another radial, because why the hell not? Right over. Oh my god, if I can actually like get this to sit where I want it to sit, that would be great, thanks. Right over her eye there. Well, that's entirely too much. Up the exposure the tiniest wee bit. Drop the highlights a touch. Just the tiniest little touch. Because I don't want it to look overly done. Observe. If I do that, and if I do that, you see, you don't want that. You don't want that weird Barbie doll thing. So I'm adjusting this the tiniest wee bit. Dropping the highlights the tiniest wee bit, and then it's looking a little bit green around the white of the eye, because obviously it's reflecting the leaves that are just in front of her. So I am just going to take the tiniest little bit of tint away from that to make that white again in the color balance, and I'm going to up the whites just a smidgen. Just a smidgen, okay? Now you could totally leave it there, and more often than not, if I was doing this for Instagram or something like that, I maybe would leave it there. However, what I would really like to do is darken up the background and the plants in the foreground. I just want to give them a little bit more punch and make them a little bit more muted. So I am going back in with another mask, and I am going to create new mask, and I am probably gonna do select subject, wait for it to detect the subject, which it's gonna get a little bit wrong anyway because I've never managed to use this appropriately. Yeah, see, so it like weirdly includes this leaf down here. However, it doesn't matter because what I am then gonna do is I'm gonna check this little box up here that says invert. I am probably going to start with the sharpness. I'm gonna drop that a wee bit. You could go pretty far with dropping the sharpness, to be fair. I really want all the focus to be on Caitlin's face. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna up the clarity and I'm gonna up the texture. So I do that and probably dehaze, up the dehaze a little bit, makes it darker, makes it a little bit more punchy. We like that. I am probably also going to drop the exposure. Just a tiny little bit, not much. Doesn't have to be much. I could go pretty far, but then I feel like you're losing some of the detail. I'm happy with that. I'm actually real happy with that. That's come out really good. I have absolutely no idea which landscape I want to do. So this one is a landscape. I shot it in portrait orientation. The first thing I would do for this one is 100% crop it 4x5. Drop that down. There's too much boring sky up here. You're gonna get some of that detail back once we start editing, but are these foreground elements more interesting? Do I prefer the fact that with these you get a lovely sweep around the water? Yes, I fucking do. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna make sure that it's straight, which it actually is, amazingly, considering I was standing on top of a cliff in the pissing rain and howling gale. In this case, I am gonna go for moraine. Then I'm going up to my mask. And I'm gonna see if in these misty conditions that I shot this in, if it can detect the sky. It selected the sky pretty good, I'm pretty happy with that. So with the sky, I'm going for moody, I'm going for dark, I'm going for overall tortured pole dark vibes. So I'm gonna drop the exposure. So that's a really good start. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring this up just a tiny wee bit. I probably want it to go about there. That is absolutely perfect. I'm going to create a new mask, and this time I'm going to do a linear gradient because I don't want to interrupt that sky, but I want everything else in the picture to be more or less the same, like in terms of the adjustments I'm going to do to it. So I'm going to whack that over the rest of it. And I'm gonna bring the exposure, who do I think I am? The exposure up quite a bit, actually. There's this pocket of brighter light here, but I actually kind of like that. It's like a big, like a little spotlight. I'm also gonna bring up the clarity on the rest of this because I really like these textures on the cliff faces. And I'm gonna bring up the texture as well, just to make it a little bit more obvious. I could maybe dehaze and create a little bit more light here, which I might just do the tiniest wee touch of, literally -3 on that. That brings out a little bit more of the layers that you can see back there, and this lovely sweeping line kind of extends a wee bit further then. I'm probably gonna drop the highlights just a touch. Actually quite a lot. I was totally lying when I said just a touch. Sorry. And that is your basics. Honestly, stuff like this, I wouldn't bother doing too much else too, frankly. What I would maybe do with this one is a little bit more work on the histogram rather than just crushing blacks. I would maybe try and like lift some things, see what that does to the sky. That's awesome. Like we love that. And I would maybe make this a little bit more gentle, I suppose. We're going dark and moody, but we also don't want people to be looking at it on their phones and thinking, well, I can't fucking see anything. Do you know what I mean? And then I would maybe add an extra point here and maybe here. And here I would drop, and there I think I'd be tempted to lift. Yeah. I'm going to sharpen it just a tiny wee touch more than it already is. And then I'm going to go for a little bit of luminance. Just a tiny bit, just to smooth that out a smidge. Then, somewhat contradictory to that very last step that I just took, I'm going to add more grain. Just a little bit more. I don't want it to be too much. I want to be able to like see the details, but you can see there that when I zoom in, I've got a nice little bit of grain. I'm pretty happy with that. So there we are. A deep dive into editing, how a hobbyist photographer who doesn't understand what she's doing really edits her photos. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Hit that ring bell button to be notified every time I upload a new video. And I will see you next month. It's goddamn March the next time I'll see you. Anyway, bye.